This exciting episode finds Parker and Mitchell embarking on yet another exciting journey. They are looking for new places to mine gold this time, and their quest has led them to Alaska, where they have high expectations for a fruitful new season. The sellers reassure Parker and Mitchell that the area is a gold reservoir, raising the question, what is the history of the previous mining firm that used to operate on this ground? Why did they abandon this vast treasure? Do the vendors really claim that the site is a gold mine? Come see Parker's stunning $400,000 gold haul from the most recent episode of Gold Rush, Examining Alaska. Parker Schnabel had to reconsider his proposal to mine in Alaska, 20 miles north of Fairbanks. He's called in his reliable right-hand guy, Mitch, to help. Mitch questions Parker about his motivation for searching for gold in Alaska as they make their way to the claim. Parker said that even though it was deeper, the area was far richer than where they were mining at the time. Based on prior experiences, he added, this would probably be a good trade-off. Drilling test holes through densely packed clay ground the previous year, Parker discovered a pay streak that was 4 times richer than his Yukon claims. Digging deep, however, is out of the question due to a 4-month delay in the wash plant he designed for this terrain. Parker and Mitch encounter Elora, the daughter of the claim owner, and her husband as they get to the claim. Before doing business, they greet each other. Parker's right-hand man must be persuaded of the claim's potential. Parker claims that Elora and her husband must persuade Mitch that running a business in Alaska is a viable option, because Mitch is a difficult sell. Elora, the daughter of claim owner John Reeves, and her husband Drew believe they may be able to save their season on this historic pitch. Elora exudes positivity and appears to possess an element that could persuade Mitch. She promises to show them the places where she has previously achieved success, and that there is a lot of gold to be found there. Parker was ecstatic as they continued. As they moved farther into the field, the group started to investigate the claim. Then, Mitch questions what it might be after spotting an ancient dredge. He believes it to be an old dredging bucket, resembling a fragment of punch plate from the earthquake. He added that it had the appearance of an antiquated tremor screen. Parker concurs, but believes it to be quite little. Mitch went on to remark that this is a lot tighter than what they have at Big Red. Comparing it to what they have there, where they are running an inch-bottom deck, he felt that the more information they could get about the activities and methods of the old miners there, the more it would benefit them. Elora makes conclusions based on her experience in the field, stating that any larger gold than they could have extracted would have been left behind by the previous miner and would have been theirs to take. Mitch concurred. Led by Elora, they ventured deeper into the claim to explore an area that was initially mined in the early 1900s. Parker tracks some soil farther into the claim in an attempt to uncover gold traces, but he comes up empty. Drawing up his analyses as well, Mitch predicted that it would all be drift tailings. Elora concurred and clarified that they had punched multiple holes and that the entire area was drift tailings. It doesn't follow that they won't find gold in another pan if they don't find it in the first. But for Parker and Mitch, his right-hand guy, this was nothing new. Mitch felt compelled to say that they were used to not finding gold panning, because they had witnessed this on numerous occasions. Elora agrees, sarcastically, that it is difficult to find gold. Even nevertheless, Mitch is attempting to decipher the activities of earlier explorers at the dredge site and has deduced that everything was carried up by shafts. In response, Elora tells him everything she knows. Before the dredges arrived, she said, they drifted mine in this region. Thus, there is a stratum that will contain gold. Subsequently, Mitch intervenes, appearing to comprehend how the more experienced miners would descend, penetrate, and reach the pay stratum. The old-timers dug holes down to a depth of up to 100 feet through concrete, which was similar to permafrost, until they reached pay soil above bedrock. Subsequently, they moved in a horizontal direction, forming accessible tunnels and extracted the gold seam, carrying it to the surface where they used crude sieve boxes to filter the pay dirt and retain some gold in their tailing. Now that Mitch had a better idea of how the older miners had operated in the past, he could assume that there was gold left over for them to pick at. They left a few behind. It would be very simple pickings. It is positioned here at the top. Parker and Mitch started to become considerably more bullish about their chances of striking gold on this claim. Maybe hold out hope for a site functioning in the future. Parker joined the chat, still tailing a pan for gold. He said that the drift just passed through some upper primitive sluice boxes and would have been placed there as long as a century ago. He kept panning, but to no avail, so at last he called Elora for help. Parker needed to finish the task, so it was her turn to show them where the gold was. She indicated a mound of earth with a birch tree perched on it, stating that frequently, when tailings are present, birch trees with roots, gravel, and possibly gold grow out of them. Should Alora's studies prove accurate, Parker and his right-hand man may find their ambitions of possibly moving the operation to Alaska realized very rapidly. Alora takes the lead as they march a few meters in the direction of the pile. When they eventually get at a good location, she gives Mitch the shovel and asks him to try it. After filling the pan with dirt, Mitch handed it back to Alora. It was time to open it and find out what was inside. If gold has been left behind in the tailings by the old-timers, this may be a game-changer. Parker can mine it quickly and easily once his wash plant arrives. After a few pannings, they had something to be joyful about at last. After spotting some gold traces, Alora seemed excited and phoned the other crew members, certain they would be interested in what she had discovered. Parker had obviously never had much luck panning in the past based on his response. He regretted that this was the reason he would constantly become so irritated when panning. He always pans dunderheads everywhere, but Alora remained optimistic that he would want to examine the pan she was holding, sure that this would cheer Parker up. Parker's gold traces in the pan were visible as she cleaned the dirt out of it and noticed the gold dust poking out on the side. This was the greatest pan she had ever done, she couldn't help but remark. Parker glared at the pan in Alora's hands, expressing his enthusiasm as well. The squad hit the jackpot, and several of them were still in disbelief. Alora found it absurd that there was a piece of gold that big there. The old-timers have not only left them with superb gold, but they have also left behind substantial losses that Parker and his team can mine right away, using any wash plant. Parker and his team appeared eager to seize this chance, as evidenced by the enormous potential for financial gain presented by this discovery. Parker shouted to Mitch that they were on board, and that this was the beginning of an excursion in Alaska. He continued to praise the pan, saying it was fantastic, speaking of the gold that's in it. Parker said that since they would need to relocate everything if they were going to mine there, it just made sense to smash it through a plant. They had abruptly re-examined their objective in Alaska, and there were encouraging indications that they would be moving activities there. In the end, Mitch expressed his satisfaction with the operation, indicating that he was finally persuaded it would be effective. In closing, he expressed his confidence that they could have a great season there, and stated that if they can sluice it, they won't need to strip it. Island Indian. Tyler Lee's major goal, while Mitch and Parker's absence, was to make sure everything was going as planned, and to reassure them that they could rely on him to handle everything worry-free. Throughout the week that Parker and Mitch were gone, they kept Big Red under Tyler's supervision at the airfield and carried out the Yukon operation, transporting a lot of heavy gravel. A crew member there greeted Tyler and Mitch with great warmth when they returned, and they greeted each other before talking business. As talks regarding their trip to Alaska started, Tyson inquired about the state. Mitch then goes into detail about the findings from their investigation of the Alaskan claim. He informed them that the claim there had some drift tailings from the turn of the 20th century. And in an attempt to establish that he is familiar with the area, the crewman interrupts. "There's a good amount of tailing there," he said. Parker then dives right into the area's specifics, stating that the land may be as big as 50,000 yards. The magnitude of the claim astounded the crewman. He said they're already piled high, thinking that they would strike it rich there. It implied that they were not getting rid of excess work. Parker retorted that there is no stripping, stating that his statement was accurate. He makes note of how crucial it is that they demonstrate to Don how committed they are to mining in Alaska, to shift some earth, earn some cash, and give him his royalties, failing which they risk being ejected from the area. Tyler and the crew still had a mission at Indian Island to complete before they realized that reality. The crewman promptly brings that up, saying that while Parker and Mitch were out, they already had some dirt. He talked about how effectively the airstrip operated and how they were able to extract some gold. He gets Tyler ready to weigh the gold they spent the last week pursuing. It was time. The 700 digger breaks down, and trying to rewild the hydraulic tubes makes the situation worse. Later attempts to empty the lines don't work and make things worse. Even though it's hard, Rick finds an amazing 122.1 ounces of gold. When Rick spends a lot of time in Raleigh Valley in late fall, more things happened. He is suddenly called away from his work to let him know that the claim owner is there. When late fall turns into early winter, things take a turn that no one saw coming. The owner of the claim says she wants to sell it to Rick, but she won't say how much. For some reason, Rick is given an extra chance. He has 2 years to make the 150-ounce down payment if he can. After that, there are heated conversations, looks, and thoughts that make Rick come up with what seems like an odd plan. The first exciting part of Rick's plan is to go back in time to late summer. Running Monster Red and Rocky at the same time is a brave move. The storyteller builds a sense of mystery and tension by picking up on people's confusion about the strange editing choices. As the story goes on, an accident happens when a rock truck tips over while backing up to dump on a pay pile. The part that's unclear is when it turns out that the truck was empty the whole time, but fully filled when it tipped over. This makes the story even less clear. It's time to clean up in the middle of all the strange things that are going on. Rocky gets 95.4 ounces, but Monster Red gets 219.8 ounces, which is even more. But when people are celebrating a win, Winter comes back quickly. Rick is not bothered by the passing of time. He decides to take advantage of the situation and buy the claim from its owner, promising to pay the 150 ounces that they had agreed upon. All of these show how unstable gold mining can be by showing both losses and wins. At the end, Rick makes a big decision that will affect the future of his business in Rally Valley. Even though it had snowed earlier in the season, Rick thought the big snowfall in the middle of winter was the first big snowfall of the year. Rockies will be closed for the year because of the snow, says Rick. This choice makes someone suddenly sneeze, which draws attention to the problems and irritations the mining operation is having. The fact that the pay in Rally Valley is so wet shows that they have hit the water table. To fix this, Rick adds a pump. Cutting that goes very quickly and exciting scenes. People say that the lack of progress the next morning is because the pump is too small, but it looks like there may be more issues. Rick decides out of the blue to take another pump without permission, which leads to a dry cut the next day. The story is mostly about the drama of the pump problem, but the water table's uneven effects make you wonder about some things. Since Rick has to pay $40,000 for the pump, it becomes more likely that Fred, who seems to have endless resources, could help with money. Even though there are problems and disagreements, the cleanup goes well, and 206.09 ounces of gold are found. These different kinds of problems and good outcomes show how unpredictable gold digging can be in the winter. As soon as winter comes early on Rick's claim, he might call all of his miners together for an encouraging speech and tell them to work harder. This is a common theme during the mining season. Rick sets up 2 machines to feed the 400-yard-per-hour wash facility so that he can get the most work done. One loader had electrical problems while it was working. These problems can be quickly fixed by cleaning the links between the batteries. Suddenly, a lot of the cut gives way, which makes the person angry and makes them swear and rub their face. Drone footage shows that the group quickly runs away because they are afraid for their lives and their gear. As the last step in the cleanup process is completed, an amazing 393 ounces are found. For the season, Rick has now weighed 2,047 ounces of gold. When you look more closely at the final gold weigh-ins, you can see that he found 19% of his gold in the last 4 weeks of the season. This is an amazing feat of gold mining. Overall, it was a great search, but do you remember when Rick's girlfriend showed up and saved the day? Lise, Rick's girlfriend, helps out a team member who is hurt. Rick's co-worker got lost in the mine madness of the bacon strip, but Elise's surprise truck skills turned things around. Rick now has 502 ounces of gold for the season, which was worth over $900,000. The crew won with 80.47 ounces of gold. To get to lower, nugget-rich ground, Rick Ness sped through the bacon strip at Duncan Creek. Riley, his new partner, wasn't at work, and he couldn't get in touch with him or tell him when he would be back. This made him angry. It made Rick feel bad, especially after a hard year. With only 2 rock trucks, Rocky could not work at full speed. Elise, Rick's girlfriend, offered to drive trucks to help. Rick gave it some thought, but in the end chose to let her learn with crews. Elise amazed everyone by being able to handle the basics and even learn more harder lessons, even though she had never been digging before. Rocky was back with 3 trucks, and Elise was driving one of them to help them move forward. Once again, Rick was pleased to see that the crew had reached 80.47 ounces of gold, which is more than $145,000. Rick has now caught 502 ounces this season, which is worth more than $900,000. This is a big accomplishment for the small group. The show ended with a funny moment where the crew made fun of Elise for something she did on the rock truck that no one saw coming. The Ness team has their best mining week yet, making almost $300,000. When Monster Red lost efficiency because of a problem with the pipeline, Rick Ness was put in a tough spot. and surprising 181 ounces of gold were found in just 70 hours, thanks to a quick fix for a finger trap and quick thought. Rick is now hoping that he will reach the rare 2,000-ounce mark. There was a lot of competition for Rick Ness to win the 2,000-ounce prize, which was the biggest award of the season. But because of problems with the seat conveyor, Monster Red dropped from moving 300 yards of dirt per hour to moving only 200 yards of dirt per hour. Its once efficient operation came to a sudden stop. Rick was afraid that he might lose gold, so he called a company right away and prayed that they could fix it quickly. There was still a lot of yardage left in the season, so Rick knew how important it was to fix this right away. During a very important meeting, Rick told Proctor Barry and Scott Ezekiel about the problem of rocks going back down the conveyor belt more slowly. It was suggested that a finger trap, which is a frame with 8 metal fingers, be built to catch rocks and let pay dirt flow through. Rick agreed to the idea and emphasized how important it was, even though building was supposed to stop. As smart as ever, Barry and Scott looked through the boneyard for extra parts that they could use to make Rick's finger trap. This smart fix took several hours to finish, and Monster Red was now ready for a test run. The team was nervously waiting for the results and thought how much gold they would really find in Rally Valley. The group found an amazing 181 ounces of gold in just 70 hours, which was more than they thought they would find. Because of how well it turned out, Rick said it was one of their biggest gold finds. He told the team thank you and said he was excited to mine at Monster Red's fast pace to keep the momentum going toward the elusive 2,000-ounce goal. Troy Taylor, the owner of the land where Rick Ness is looking for 2,000 ounces of gold, gives him a chance by offering to buy the land with a 150-ounce down payment. Ness now has the most gold he has ever won. Kyle Lawson, a rookie, is in charge of a bold plan that makes an amazing 315 ounces every week. Rick is driven to succeed, so he makes a promise to own land even though there are problems. Mine manager Rick Ness staked his young career on a 190-foot deep-cut test drilling, which increased the chance of a $5 million gold hit. Rick is 800 ounces short of his goal weight of 2,000 ounces because the results haven't lived up to his hopes. Rick is worried about his survival as winter comes and the high-grade pay layer stays out of reach. He isn't just enjoying digging a big hole. Rick knows he needs to find an answer and thinks about the best way to reach his season's goal. Troy Taylor, the owner of the Duncan Creek house that Rick is said to be renting, calls him out of the blue. Troy makes Rick an offer to buy the land and puts down 150 ounces, which is equal to $250,000, $100. Rick is shocked by the offer, but he says he'll think about it and get back to you right away. Rick is having a hard time making a profit after spending a lot of money on new tools, so this offer comes at a bad time. Rick feels the rush and thinks of new ways to get more done and keep things going forward. He tells his team about a bold plan. He wants to run both wash stations at the same time. Rick talks to Kyle Lawson, who used to work as an iron worker in Yukon, and asks him to run a single workshop by himself so that this plan can work. Kyle takes on the job of running Rocky, the wash plant, even though he doesn't know much about mining. Because he is always short-staffed, Rick counts on Kyle to bring in the extra 150 ounces needed for the down payment. Since Rocky is back at work, Kyle is in charge of running the wash plant and filling the dirt by himself. He is in charge of the process and makes sure that the ashes don't get in the way of the flow. Even though it's hard, Kyle is able to process the gold and reports an amazing 315 ounces of output for the week, with 219.8 ounces coming from Monster Red and 95 ounces from Rocky. Rick is so excited about his huge gold find that he goes to talk to the homeowner, Troy Taylor, about buying the land. Rick is sure of his choice, so he agrees to buy the land and says that the down payment can't be returned. Rick says he is sure he will be able to pay back the loan before the end of the season, and the deal says that the fee plan will continue into the next season. As Rick gets closer to his goal of having his own land, he thinks about the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Rick is amazed by Monster Red's digging skills. When Monster Red makes a comeback, Rick Ness sets a 2,000-ounce goal for him. A new hopper feeder gets around problems and boosts output to more than 300 yards per hour. As winter gets closer, things get more urgent, and Rick's determination to finish his gold mine project on time stands out. Rick Ness, the mine boss, has to do the hard work of bringing Monster Red back to life in order to make his 2,000-ounce goal. Within 48 hours, his goal is to develop and improve the plant so that it works as efficiently as possible. A big LRS feeder with twice as much capacity as the old model is part of the plan, along with a simplified design that doesn't have any extra lines. Installing it is hard, especially when a heavy chute makes the tow lift work less well. The group changes the wire to stop more damage. The updated hopper feeder in Monster Red makes it possible for it to do more while keeping the focus on speed and ease of use. Rick thinks that running the plant at over 300 yards per hour will make it much more productive. The team brings Monster Red back to life after a scary moment with a broken part and sets it up to look at Rally Valley's rich pay dirt. It's becoming more and more important to get Monster Red up and running as winter approaches. Rick is determined to be successful in his gold mining project, as shown by his desire to end the season on a high note. Rick is looking forward to the arrival of the new hopper feeder and the chance to make money from Rally Valley's deep-cut pay dirt, especially now that Monster Red is ready for fight. The major turning point in Rick's journey to financial success and the completion of his 2,000-ounce goal was the repair of the wash plant. The leaves changing colors are a steady reminder that time is running out to get things done, so the rush is on. The biggest gold weights of Season 12 come from Parker using Lucifer's wash plant at Scribner Creek to its fullest, which yields 337.45 ounces. Rick's team can now clean up 3 ounces per hour. Parker's team at Big Red is having a great week because 596.6 ounces are worth more than $1 million. The story gives a short summary of the problems and successes that come with gold digging. The team meets at Scribner Creek for the gold weigh-in. They greet each other and talk about what they have planned for the week. Parker talks about the costs of the process. He says that he had to pay $350,000 to get rid of his deepest dirt, which added up to $1.4 million. Lucifer, his wash plant, needs to produce more than 180 ounces to break even, which will be hard to do since it only produced 84 ounces last week. When things went wrong, the team made changes that improved the wash plant's performance and cut down on the amount of water it used. Torsten gets the 750 digger ready for Duncan Creek's rough ground by carefully moving the movable undercarriage. Things are getting more exciting as the gold show gets closer. Since Mitch fixed the plant, he quickly shows off the result, which is a big step forward. The cleanup from the 750 makes an amazing 337.45